Hi, this is Amy from Savvy Sugaring. I'm just posting a video to show you guys how you can be a little bit more economical with your sugar so you aren't wasting sugar throughout your treatments. So one of those things, first of all, is obviously not using too much sugar. And I'm going to show you how much sugar you need per body part. So legs, for example, you would typically, for someone who has dry skin and thick coarse hair, you might do either just ultra or a mix of ultra and smooth, depending on the skin type, of course. And so first of all, for legs, for full legs, I would probably use about this much. That's all that's really needed. And that's quite a lot. And that I can really spread across the whole leg without having to change my sugar paste. If you aren't totally confident in using that much sugar, why not use less? It's just you will have a smaller spread and you won't be able to take it so far. But you do need enough to go from the ankle to the knee. And so that's about that much. Hopefully you can see that. And another thing is, remember, after your training, one of the goals is to prevent that sugar from climbing up the hand. If it does climb up in your hand, it's just wasteful because you can't sugar with your palm of your hands. So really aim to keep that paste on the fingertips. Another thing to remember is, so this is the softest paste. Even though it's the softest paste, it's not going to move very quickly. I mean, it's a very slow, pliable texture, so you don't have to be worried that it's going to drip everywhere. But one thing you do need to do is prevent it from going up into your hand. So just keep it on the fingertips, like so. So if I was doing a bikini or Brazilian, about half of that. Remember, the bikini and the Brazilian, it is a very small area, and also like your applications are very small. You're not doing full big body parts. So about this much is more than enough. And for bikini or Brazilian or buttocks, you would typically go with smooth. And if your client is very sweaty, then you can actually also add a little piece of strong as well, so that your paste is just the optimal texture for you and your client. Remember that when your clients are sweaty, that moisture is going to go into your paste and it's going to make it even softer. So if you can see that your client is already nervous, then go for a smooth and already add a little bit of strong so that it's really not too soft or melting into the skin. That amount is for bikini or Brazilian. If I'm doing armpits, it's about half of that. So it's just less and less paste. So that is more than enough for armpits. And then for facial sugaring, if you're doing hela ansikte or full face, you would actually still use that same amount of paste. And what you would do for full face is you would first maybe work in the cheek area and then the chin area, and then you would do upper lip and eyebrows. So that's enough for a full face. But if you're doing just eyebrows, even less. So one thing to consider with being not wasteful with your sugar is not taking too much sugar straight from the beginning. Remember, we're not sugaring with the palms of our hands, so if you have too much sugar, it is going to go up here because you're not sugaring with your palms, you're sugaring with your fingertips. So that's even not too much. So I would even take even less. So eyebrows, even that can be adjusted. So eyebrows and upper lip, approximately that much. And if this is my eyebrow, all that sugar is being held into my fingertips, and really I'm just sugaring with this. So you don't need very much sugar to sugar eyebrows, so you can even get rid of more. Now I haven't touched anybody's skin with this, so I'm allowed to put it back into the paste, just so you know. So you don't need very much. So that's one tip, is really not taking too much sugar straight from the beginning. Another thing to consider is, let's say you have a client who's coming in for basically full body. Let's say our client is doing full legs, armpits, upper lip, bikini. What you can do is you first of all think about, if you're one of those people that first do legs, then take off your gloves, and then grab new gloves, and then grab new sugar. First of all, you're wasting gloves. Second of all, you're wasting sugar. So what you can do instead is grab enough sugar paste to do all the body parts at once. So before getting started, you would of course prep everything, all the areas, and then you would take your paste and sort of place it on the legs. Make sure it's not too soft so it doesn't go dripping everywhere. But let's say, for example, take my Ultra, and I just sort of bend her leg and place it here. I'm just going to let it sit there. So first of all, you would maybe not start with her armpits and then go to her upper lip. You would instead just do the upper lip first, and then go to the armpits, and then to the bikini, and then down to the legs. And this way you don't have to change your gloves and change your paste. So I'm going to do her upper lip really quickly. So I'm holding all the paste in my 3 fingers and my thumb, and this finger, my pointed finger, is going to be doing the sugaring. So first of all, just ask her to move towards me. I'm stretching the skin nice and taut. Applying it. I'm just going to do it really quickly so I can show you what I mean. Apply pressure. Right now I'm sugaring with Ultra, so it is the softest. The longer you leave it on the skin, or the more times you scoop the skin, the more you're warming up the skin. And that means that your paste might get too soft. I'll just do the other side really quickly. That can happen. Just pick it up before it soaks into the skin in areas where you don't want to have it. And then I do here. And remember, the hairs are growing down, so we apply up. And then you can remove, you're still removing down, but you're kind of going on an angle. There's just a little bit here. There. And then usually I would also do underneath the lip. I've already prepped her and everything in all these areas. There, and the other side. So by spreading your paste everywhere, you're first of all being, you're saving time so that you don't need to change your gloves, you don't need to go back and grab new sugar. So we're saving a lot of time, but also paste. We don't need to change your paste, we don't need to change your gloves. So next thing we're gonna do is armpits. So if you wanna come over here and get an angle, or whatever angle you feel is good. So she actually is a sugarer, and she has been sugared for how long?
4 years, 3 years.
So it's really starting to thin out quite a bit. You can see where there's patches of hair missing. Now, obviously, following in the direction of hair growth is extremely important. Very rarely you'll get a client that has their hairs growing in one direction. So really just paying attention what direction the hairs are growing. And these ones are growing mostly that way. And I'm using 2 fingers to really scoop the sugar into the skin. And these ones are growing down. those ones are growing up. And these ones are growing that way. There we go. And then you would, of course, go do the other side. And if I was to do her bikini or Brazilian, I would then move down to this section and sugar that way. And then it would come down to our blob of sugar on our leg. So now this is really like seeped into the skin. So you just grab that. And then I would sugar her whole leg. So now I have lots of sugar to do a nice big application. And also another thing, speed sugaring is a really great way for your clients to save time, and time is money. So just working very quickly. So having a long, nice, big spread. It also really helps, of course, if your clients have not such dry skin. If they did have really dry skin, and you can see before even starting, first of all, when you're prepping, make sure you scrub a little bit with the towel so that you really remove that surface dead skin. Secondly, if they have really dry skin, which actually our client does have a bit of dry skin, what you could do to prevent yourself from getting stuck in the knees, because sometimes if you have a client who has really dry skin, you can sometimes get stuck, and then it really is painful for the client and it's time consuming for you. What you can do before even sugaring is straight away put the soothing oil onto her legs, onto her knees and her ankles. These are common areas where we typically will get stuck. You put that there, and then you powder everything, and then you sugar. And this way, when you are sugaring and you're rolling past the knee, it won't be able to get stuck into the area where you have applied oil. It'll just kind of roll off. So that's another good trick. Otherwise, what you could do, if you have forgotten that tip, to put the soothing oil, you could also just leave a piece of sugar in the dry patch, let it soak into the skin and let it really soften the dead skin cells, and then go back to it at the end and remove it. Another thing that a lot of people tend to waste sugar on is, let's say you're a new beginner, you just learned how to sugar, and you have a client who's never tried sugaring or any type of hair removal. You obviously don't want to be unprofessional, and let's say I'm sugaring, and then all of a sudden, oh crap, I'm getting stuck. You don't want to be unprofessional in front of your client and look like you don't know what you're doing. So what you might do is go and just wash it off and start over. This is very costly, but it's also time consuming, because now you have to wash this off, then you have to dry her skin, you have to change your gloves. It's wasting product and it's wasting time for your clients. One better way to get unstuck is figuring out, why are you getting stuck in the first place? Maybe she has dry skin, or maybe you have forgot your techniques, so maybe you aren't rolling past the sugar pace. Remember, one thing we train during education is that the flick off is actually one step. It's 2 words, but it's 1 step. Kind of like when you're kicking the soccer ball, you have to wind your leg up and then pop it off. But you aren't pausing, you aren't putting your leg up, waiting, and then getting it off. It's similar when you're flicking off. You're not going to roll past, stop, and then try and go off, because then it will get stuck. Can you zoom in for that? So if you're trying to roll off, or flick off, you don't want to roll past the edge, stop, and then go off, because you will get stuck and it will hurt your client. And then you'll get frustrated, and then it will start melting, and then you'll just want to wash it off and start over. This is something you don't want to do. First of all, think about your steps. Think about flick off in 1 step. Another thing you can think about is if you are getting really stuck, you can always grab a small piece of strong. Strong paste is obviously the hardest paste, and you can keep strong at room temperature because you can use this when you need it, when you are getting stuck. Typically, areas that you might get stuck are knees, ankles, maybe on a Brazilian at the very top of the labia. Those are really deep-rooted hairs. You might get stuck there. If you do, just grab a small piece of strong with your stick, with a clean stick, add it to the paste that you have in your hand. Don't mix it in, just keep it literally on the fingertips. Take that strong, touch it to the paste that is getting stuck, whether it's the leg or whatever area. You just take that paste, pretend this is strong, you take it, touch it, no more scooping, no penetration at all. Just roll past the edge and flick it off, and it will come off. Strong is a wonderful product to have for getting unstuck. Another thing you can do as well is, let's say you've overworked the area, you keep going over the same spot, you can see the skin is getting really dry. Either you can grab the strong or you can grab a little piece of powder the edges, just like that. And then you see how it kind of creates a slightly thicker edge. It's not as soft and gooey. It's a little bit thicker. You just take your paste again, touch it, roll past, and flick it off. And usually that will really help. But definitely don't wash it off. Don't throw out your gloves and start over. Another thing you could do too is if you keep getting stuck in the same area, leave it, move on to another body part, sugar there, and then you can always come back. So another thing that she suggested as well is working on angles. So if you're getting stuck in the same area, let's say you've overworked the area, you can see it's really like starting to melt into the skin. You can see it's getting red on the edges. Another thing you can do is either powder or strong on the edge or work on angles like she suggested. So you would work, for example, like this, and you're still working down. You're not going against the hair growth. So in other words, you would never come down here. If you're working all the edges like this, you would never come down here and pull up, because if you do, you'll obviously break the hairs. You still want to respect the fact that the hairs are growing down, so you need to, if you're going to work edges, you still need to remove downwards. So another thing you can do is also, if you can see that your client has really dry, congested skin, and it's your paste, you've been working with it for a while, and you can see that your paste is getting really thick and it's really hard to actually apply it into the skin. Instead of changing your entire ball of paste, what you can do is keep half of it in your hand, throw out only half instead of all of it, and then you can grab a stick and grab a new fresh piece of Ultra and add it to your paste, because Ultra is our softest paste. So you would mix Ultra with about, let's say, half of this. So let's say this half is really, really hard and thick. I throw that out in the garbage. I keep a portion of it, and then I add a new piece of Ultra, mix it in, and then continue sugaring. So that's pretty much it. If I come up with any other ideas, I'll make sure to mention them to you, but I believe that's pretty much it. It's really also important to get to know your sugar paste, and if you happen to get stuck, it's important to know how to get unstuck. And that's going back to the basics. That's really figuring out what did we teach you guys during class, and that's always staying parallel to the skin. That's always rolling past the edge and remembering to flick off in one step instead of flick, pause, and then try and go off. That will hurt your clients. It will get you stuck. So really think about your technique and make sure you are always scooping to really get that sugar inside the skin, and make sure you're flicking to be parallel to the skin. And really maximize your time. It shouldn't take you too long to do all your body parts. So try and really focus on working in sections. So the outer leg, the inner leg, then on the top. Then maybe do her thighs, and then work the knees, flip her over. So really keep in mind to work fast but efficient. And that means straight away when you first apply your sugar paste, make sure you immediately are doing a really nice scoop to really get that sugar inside the skin. That's pretty much it, guys. Hope it helps. Keep on sugaring.